Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Come waste your time. So yeah, our government's over here, whining like a bunch of babies.
4 more years, boys.
Now, you guys know I'm not really a politics guy, so you'll have to explain to me.
A lot has happened in the past few days.
Sure, where shall we start?
Oh, it all ends up
Generally, the beginning.
I was gonna say in a baby crib.
Okay, so
In a baby crib. What is going on?
The Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, throwing a fit.
Okay.
they did impeach him. So Donald J. Trump was the third president to be impeached.
Okay.
He had criminal charges brought against him by the House of Congress. And it proceeded to the Senate, and the Senate had to have a 75% vote to remove him, and they didn't even make 50%.
Oh, wow.
So what happens now is this isn't like before we start speculating, this isn't like like a criminal case where there's double jeopardy and stuff. They can keep doing it, and I see this happening. I see you'll hear a lot of like Adam Schiff. He's complete lies that come out of this man's mouth. I mean, there's literally one of his speeches was what was supposed to be in the phone call between Donald Trump and Ukraine's president.
Mm-hmm.
And he said all this stuff, and he was saying, what they said. Well, the transcript came out like of what they actually said.
Yeah.
And they were like, Adam Schiff, that was nothing like what you had said. Why did you say that stuff? And he's like, oh, I made a parody. That was just a parody of what was in the transcript.
Okay.
So it's been complete lies and other stuff. But see, here's the problem is that most people aren't intelligent enough to look this stuff up, or they just don't care because it really doesn't affect their everyday lives. Well, that's what they think. But if Donald Trump got pulled out, that means that Mike Pence would be president.
Yeah.
So, nothing too bad there. But you're going to piss off everybody that voted for Donald Trump. They removed Donald Trump under something that wasn't even a crime.
Like, what was the actual criminal charge?
So they brought 2 criminal charges against him. One was obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. So his abuse of power was the whole withholding aid from nothing specific, by the way, not specifically saying his abuse of power was when he withheld aid from Ukraine, because what this whole thing wrapped around was there was a phone call between Donald Trump and President of Ukraine. So they're talking back and forth, and there's no quid pro quo like was said, like, hey, you look into this or else we're withholding aid. None of that was said. And that's what the Democrats were putting across. So that, I mean, if it was like that, okay, maybe, but there was nothing like that. Donald Trump never said, I'm going to withhold aid if you don't look into Joe Biden's son. Never got said, but the Democrats said that he had said that. Therefore, here we are with this. So let's back up even further, and let's look at why this all happened. Why all of a sudden day did a hair go up somebody's ass and somebody, you know, quote unquote, blow a whistle. Well, Joe Biden was sitting down. I think it was CNN. He was sitting down with CNN, and CNN was like, "All right, Mr. Biden, so you're running for president. What's your foreign policy? You know, how do you deal with your foreign policy?" And Joe Biden's like, "Hey, listen, check me out. Listen, I am a badass motherfucker when it comes to foreign policy. We're talking with other countries. That's me." He said, "You want to know how awesome I am? When Ukraine was trying to look into my son, and his son, by the way, military dropout, got busted for cocaine possession, but somehow has no degree and energy, is running an energy company in Ukraine, making millions of dollars a month." You see what I'm saying here? The kind of elitist, kind of, you know, my daddy is the vice president of the United States, so I get this kind of shit.
Right.
So Ukraine was going to look into it and like, hold on here. There's some bad deals on. What the fuck is Hunter Biden actually doing here? So Joe Biden calls him up and is like, "Hey, you fucking look into my son. I'm withholding aid from you guys." And they're like, "No, you can't do that. You're vice president." So this is still Joe talking to this reporter. So Joe was like, "So I made a couple phone calls and I withheld aid. And guess what? They didn't look into my fucking son. So this is going on live television on CNN." And Donald Trump's like, "We're looking into that shit, bud."
Right.
So they start looking into it, and then Adam Schiff, the whole FBI is like, "Oh no, we can't fucking have this." And they start looking into Donald Trump and looking back at how he actually got elected. If because let's not forget that. Let's not forget whenever Trump somehow rigged the election to win with the Russians. That came out to be not true.
Right.
Which the FBI is in a lot of trouble right now. So when all this stuff eventually does blow over, we're looking at the FBI. Some members of the FBI are probably going to get charged with treason.
Well,
because they spied on. So technically, you know how the FBI and CIA listening to Discord calls, listening to your phone calls. That shit's illegal. They can't do that. That's espionage.
Right.
So they did that into the Trump campaign. They planted a spy in there to see what was going on, to see if they could get him on anything. And obviously they can't. He didn't do anything wrong. So with this acquitted stuff, what had happened was the Senate was going to vote on whether to remove the president on the two charges for, obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. So I talked about abuse of power, which was the whole Ukraine deal thing. He didn't. He withheld aid, which it doesn't really specify. Democrats don't go into it. What probably happened was, hey, we got to hold it so we could finance it and then put it back in. He had to have it done by September to release it back, and he got it done by September 14th. And they still say that that's wow. Anyways, so let's talk about obstruction of Congress. So what do you guys think obstruction of Congress would be?
Preventing Congress from being able to vote on something.
Right. So like calling witnesses, getting documents, and the president saying, "No, you can't do that."
Right.
And stuff. But he never did that. He never, some people, he was like, "No, they're not going to go testify in front of you guys. You guys aren't going to ask questions," because they had been subpoenaed, which is illegal in itself, that they were doing that. Subpoenaed to show up to court. If not, they were going to jail.
Oh, wow.
And they had done that. about 3 times already. So the president, our president was like, come on, man. They've already been there 3 times. You've asked them the same questions. Leave them alone. They have work to do.
Right.
So that's obstruction of Congress. It was one of the single-handedly worst versions of an impeachment that I could have ever seen.
Right. Sounds like a shit show.
It's a complete shit show. It just, and then if someone on the outside didn't see what's going on and they read the the mainstream headline news that Donald Trump's an orange-haired racist asshole that has a bunch of racist followers, you believe it. You'd be like, oh shit, this dude's a douchebag.
Right.
And not really if you didn't know what was going on, because they're pushing it. The only mainstream media that is not on top of Donald Trump's ass is Fox. The rest of them, NBC, CNN, CBS, even your late night talk show hosts that know nothing about politics are all talking about how much of a piece of shit Donald Trump is when there's no proof. No proof. Like, that's like saying that Bill Clinton never got a blowjob in the Oval Office. He didn't do it.
I mean, it was only the most famous blowjob in the world. Everybody heard about that blowjob. Like, I don't think there was a single corner of the world that didn't know.
The slobber heard around the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing that happened with this whole ordeal too. Everybody knows about it, whether you looked into it like Travis has, or whether you read it on just an article header, and you at least know something.
So Donald Trump had a State of the Union address the day before he got acquitted, and with the State of the Union, you've got your vice president and Speaker of the House sitting behind you. So he's given a state of this, every president's boring ass State of the Union address. And before he hands it to Speaker of the House, Vice President sits down, he turns around to the podium, gives out his spiel. Every other deal. Well, he turns around, looks at Nancy Pelosi, hands her his State of the Union address, doesn't shake her hand, immediately turns to the Vice President Mike Pence, hands it to him, shakes his hand, goes on with his spiel. So after the State of the Union address, everybody's clapping, 4 more years, let's go. And it's a great time, great energy, firm handshakes all around.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi's in the back ripping up the State of the Union address.
What?
Yeah, on national television.
Wow.
And that's actually it's an ethical crime. Like, people were trying to take her down for that. Huh?
Yeah, all over her Twitter and Instagram. People are like, "You're an ugly, nasty woman."
She looks so pissed and let down.
Well, she's hurt.
So yeah, the world today.
It's a crazy world.
But it is the world that we live in. And everyone that is listening, you can change it.
Yes, you can.
You can change it. Your vote does matter. And if it doesn't matter, then we need to take out the politicians that are running it. Because that's what we have, a constitution. It's not one of those, you just put your head down and obey the shepherd. We are not lambs. This country was not built on lambs. That's why we literally have a Second Amendment. It is not to make sure that you can not get shot in the ghettos, to protect yourself at home. It literally is for taking out tyranny. That is what the Second Amendment is for. You have the Second Amendment to protect your First Amendment.
Well said.
Yep. Like, subscribe, and all that. See you guys.
Yep.
So,
Bye.
over Trump.